Welcome to HAS Innovation Lab. So before we go inside any lab, also we need to consult all the safety requirements. Starting here, our safety first, we need to have protective gloves, we need to have safety glasses, no drinks, no cell phones, no headphones are allowed in the lab. Also we have sheet information for safety, where you can see the contact person for this lab too, and also you can see what chemicals we have. For this lab, we have some flammable chemicals, we have some gas cylinders, and we have some oxidizers, and we have waste chemicals. So what is required as PPE, personal protective equipment, gloves, safety glasses, and protocol to follow. Okay? So once you make sure all the students, they have these equipment, they are allowed to get inside the lab. Once inside the lab, as all the other labs, we need to know our evacuation plan. The evacuation plan is here, so students will know where they are and how to exit the building in case of emergency. They have the safety glasses here in place, and you will see some signs everywhere. Also, we have our first aid in this lab, materials, everything is inside. Then, once you are in the lab, you need to tell them where is the fire extinguisher. So we can see from the emergency evacuation plan that our extinguisher is at this location, which is next to this door, and we can go and check it right now. We can see here, this is our fire extinguisher, and always the date is displayed in front of the users. Okay, and we see it's used, so you need just to pull hard and you get access to it. To go to the other lab that we just saw, so this is a door between the labs. So before going inside also, we provide the same safety information sheet or card, so students who will go from this lab to the other lab, they can detect if there is anything that is required. For example, a lab coat is required, so if you don't have it, you need to put one before getting inside the lab. Another important safety thing is you can see these yellow strips we have on the floor. So these are the limits of students. So students are not allowed past these lines unless they are asked to or accompanied with their instructor. So when their instructor is here, he can ask them one by one to come in, and otherwise they need to follow the other space and do not come inside these unsafe places. Each equipment here might have some warnings and some safety guidelines that students need to consult. Like, for example, here we have a warning. So it says that refer to manual, consult your manual if you have any problem with this pressure. So the good thing about this equipment, it doesn't have high pressure, but still it applies for gloves and for glasses. This is a flow loop where students can test different flow regimes in different type of pipes. So the fluid will come here, and then they have a set of valves. They can select the path of fluid, and they can change the dimensions of these pipes to study the fluid behavior inside these pipes. Then we go to the next equipment we have. So since I am allowed, I can come closer to this equipment. This is a Pvt Cell, okay? Now we can see the warning we have on the wall. So warning, hot surface, contact may cause burn, do not touch. So we advise no one touches this equipment unless he's working on it. He knows if it is hot or not. But if it is hot and the chamber is hot, always safety gloves from the heat that support the heat are required to deal with this equipment when it is hot. So this is the Pvt Cell. It helps to study the phase behavior of oil and gas, and it has some cameras, it has a heating jacket here. So you put the oil and then you inject from this pump the fluid at constant flow rate or constant volume and see how the oil and gas are behaving together. Moving to other equipment, we have our core flooding machine. The first thing we see the warning. So warning, hot surface contact may cause burn, do not touch. So now we know. Here you have the temperature inside. So I can see now the temperature inside is 71. So it's not hot inside. Okay, so I can open it. Even when it is, if it is hot, I need to make sure that I have protection in my hands before handling any equipment that I have inside. As you can see, it has some venting, and I'm going to make sure that the fan is working. So if the lab manager won't find the fan is working, he needs to fix that before anyone operates it. So this is the core flooding machine where you put your core sample inside and you apply pressure to it, and you put the oil and then inject CO2, any type of gas, emulsions, chemicals to simulate the EOR or enhanced oil recovery mechanism and see how efficient it is on your core sample. So basically you have the pumps here where you pump the fluid inside the core. You have your data acquisition system and all the valves, you can control them here. You get the data from your data acquisition system, and then you can plug them to your simulator and continue with the simulation. The other equipment we have is here we have our artificial tension and wettability machine. Okay. First, we can see that we have a sign here saying clean and return all equipment, tools, and supplies when finished. Okay, so we want to make sure if you want to make any connections, so this equipment needs a lot of connections, as you can see here. So making these connections need a lot of tools. So we want to make sure students, when they use the tools here, they need to take them back to the toolbox. Okay, so this equipment helps to measure the artificial tension, as we said, of different fluids, and also it helps to calculate or measure the wettability of fluids. Now moving to another part of the lab, we have our drilling rig. So this drilling rig is built by students for a competition for drill robotics, and now it's used for research. So when we come closer here, we can see, so this equipment here has some pinch points, and we are dealing with rotation and drilling. So students, they need to have gloves on, and that's why we have other type of gloves, and they are secured in our toolboxes. When you are dealing with this equipment, you need to put your thick gloves so your hands doesn't get pinched inside. So this is drilling rig that you can simulate drilling operation at small scale. You can measure your rate of penetration, your weight on bit, your torque, and everything is connected to the computer system where you have your data acquisition and do data analytics. Next part here, this is another core flooding machine similar to the one we just saw. We have also the warning of hot surface. This is, we are at the phase of building this equipment. So this is built also by students from scratch, and we are almost done building this equipment and will be operating soon. And having this equipment with the other one here in this lab will advance our research in enhanced oil recovery lot in this department. The other equipment we have here is our flow loop or multi-phase flow loop. As you can see, also I need to be careful with these lines. So I'm sure now no one is running this, and I know the equipment, so I am an authorized personnel to be inside these lines. Okay, when I'm explaining this to students, I always tell them to stay away of these lines unless I need one of them to operate something and I will be watching it. We have the first safety signal here, caution slip hazard, because we are dealing with the fluid. Fluid can come from anywhere in this floor and it will be wet floor, so we don't want anyone to slip on the floor. So they need to make sure to have the appropriate boots on when coming to this lab. So basically this lab we have a compressor and we have a tank of mud, oil or water connected to a pump. Then the water or any type of liquid is injected to the bottom of these pipes. We have different pipes, different sizes. Everything, we have sensors on the top and on the bottom, and the fluid is injected through these pipes. At the same time, we inject the gas, and they are mixed inside these pipes, and we can see the behavior between both liquid and gases together when they are inside the pipes, and this helps with the research and with teaching for our students. The next equipment we have is our Autolab. Okay? So Autolab helps to measure properties on rock samples. So when you bring a rock sample, we put it inside this equipment and we measure some porosity and permeability, especially for tight rocks and unconventional reservoirs, where we cannot measure the porosity and permeability using traditional machines and equipment. So bring it here, we can measure that. Also, we can measure our dynamic elastic properties like Young modulus, Poisson ratio, bulk modulus, and all other properties of the rock without any destructive test. So we bring the sample and you send some acoustic waves. You will measure VP and VS using this sophisticated equipment, and everything is controlled through control panel here, computer, and computed inside. Also, you can control the confining pressure, so you can apply a pressure on the core sample to mimic the reservoir condition and different confining pressures before you do the experiments. As you know, confining pressure affects the measurement and the properties of the rock. That's why it's good to have this equipment and do the confining pressure before measuring these properties. We have our rock test system where you can measure the UCS, but this one you cannot apply any confining pressure. You just put the sample between these two pistons and then crash it and read the values to see when the crash will happen. Then you can measure your elastic properties. So this is what we call a destructive test. As you can see, so we have safety glass here. So because we are crushing the rock, so there are some potential rock fragments to come out from these holes. That's why safety glasses are very important before operating such equipment. Okay? And for example, this is the power part of the machine, and you can see we have hazard of high voltage, so students need to be careful before coming inside this zone. So it's yellow zone, so we have the yellow strip here, so they are not allowed to come inside unless they are authorized to do so. So the last part of the equipment we have here, so for example, we have warning on surface. Okay, it's up. I can make